So welcome, another beautiful afternoon here. We're in Wodonga and I'm sitting here across from a man from Totally Renewable Yackandandah.
Very well said.
Did I get it?
Yes,
okay,
very
well,
good.
why don't you start by telling us a little about yourself and what the movement is about?
Yeah, sure. And thanks and welcome to here, Ziggy.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So Totally Renewable Yackandandah. I should say my name's Dennis Gammon. I'm the co-chair of this group called Totally Renewable Yackandandah. Yackandandah is a small town, 20 k's out of Wodonga from here. 1,200 people. Cute little place.
Yeah.
In fact, it's an idyllic little country town.
Yeah.
And there's a group of people that got together. And I should say it's also a town that has a sense of it can do things. It doesn't have to wait for anybody else to lead or to get the example from. They'll actually, there is a strong ethic in the community to have a crack. And there's some really good projects. I can talk about them if we have time, but some that have actually set the tone for what happened in 2014, which is when we formed this group and became constituted. And its goal is to get to a point where by 2022 that is 100% effectively using renewable energy. So it won't be dependent on coal or fossil fuel generated power. And at times it may be, but the net thing for the whole year will be that there'll be more renewable energy generated than what we need over a year.
And I like what you touched on there was the fact that it's a town that's not waiting for other people to set that example. You guys have to be taking it into your own hands. And what is that about Yackandandah? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I'm just one person. I've got a take, and I think one of the drivers is around the time Yackandandah has a music festival, folk festival. It's coming up to its 22nd year. Don't forget. So it's a pretty big event now. But when we started, a few people got together and said, "Why do we have to drive to Port Fairy or to Canberra for the national? Why don't we do something here?" So in the first year, they had a bush dance and maybe one singer, and that was it wasn't called a festival. It was just a nice night out.
Bit of a doof kind of thing.
Yeah. Folk dancing and all that sort of old stuff, country hall sort of stuff. And since then, that's grown. It's now to 22 years, and the town has become very proud of its own achievements with that. And I shouldn't say it's the only thing, but it's one. Another one is that 12 years ago, the fuel station, the old one, was gone. It had to be decommissioned because it's too dangerous, and it didn't look like anybody wanted to rebuild and put a new one in. So the people in the town got together and decided, well, why don't we get one ourselves? So there's a community-owned petrol station.
Oh, you're kidding.
In Yackandandah. So unlike pretty much every other petrol station in Australia, the profits go off to Texas or London. Here they go back into our own community.
Wow.
So it's a community-owned fuel outlet, and now it's got a farm produce and hardware sort of add-ons. But the core part was to get the fuel idea working.
Yeah.
And it's been fabulous. See, it's sort of like that to me is like a signature project. It's in a difficult industry to be independent in, but they've done it.
And that's like making a really good thing of, if you it's still going to be a long time to come yet till all cars aren't running on fuel, and so forth. If you're going to have fuel, then have a community. I've never even conceptualized a community-owned fuel station because you see chains. So that's I think. Hats off to you guys. So Try as a movement, that started in 2014.
It constituted in 2014. There had been some things happening, projects running before that, but this group of people got together, and I should say there was mainly younger people. So I'm a bit older than the average younger person, but I remember thinking, oh guys, I hope you don't get burnt by your idealism. Like they were keen to do it, and at the time, 4 years ago, I'm thinking, geez, renewable energy, some people still want to die in the ditch opposing it.
Yeah.
Well, now things have changed, and I believe it'll happen. I think they will achieve their goal. So in a way, my job, whilst it's not about me at all, but what I've tried to do is to support the group and the guys in the group, but not to be the front of house person. So I'm here tonight because they've got a meeting tonight.
Yeah.
And the idea is that whatever I can do around the edges to take the pressure off and enable them to achieve their goal, I'm into that. So that's sort of why I got the gig here tonight.
Yeah.
There's about 12 people who are the core people. Over time, we're actually seeking tax deductibility status. So we've got about 60 members, signed up members who have actually paid membership fee. And that hasn't all locked in yet, but we are an organisation that is seeking community to support it, as well as government, as well as private industry.
And for you guys, because this is where I think it gets interesting, is how have you gone about implementing the idea and reaching out to the community and people like living in Yackandandah? How's that happened in the last 5 years now? How's that gone about to get people on board? And once they're on board, what steps has been taken together to get towards renewable, and a renewable future?
Yeah, I think in a small country town, a lot of things that happen are relational. It's not because you see some ad in the paper, so right, I'll go there. It's because you know people, you know the history, you know who's been trying to do what already, and there's a sort of sense of recognising the goodwill and intent of people that you know. So why wouldn't you want to be supportive of someone who you know and respect or love, and give them your best shot to support what they're doing? So that's in a small town. That's I think is quite a core element of the way things have unfolded. But they've done things like they've done surveys of house by house of whether people may be interested and what would they do, what would it take for them to consider looking at the solar energy option. They've actually developed a relationship with AusNet, which is it's a major corporation. It owns all the poles and wires in most of Victoria. So they're a seriously big company, and they've got interested in Yackandandah because we've been doing some things that they see us as being a town that's friendly to having a crack at innovation and trialling new models. So they've helped us with what we call bulk buys. So we would have a subscription to, if someone wants to buy a solar panel system, put your hand up, and put your hand up by December 30th, and then everyone signs up, and then the corporation would then go and bulk buy at the best negotiated price. So you're reducing your cost to everybody. So that a lot of people have got into it that way. We've had 2 solar bulk buys and now 1 solar hot water system bulk buy.
Fantastic.
And so there's, we'd be sitting down on the main street of Yackandandah, like spruiking, don't forget, guys, you've got 2 weeks and the deadline's over, and we need you to sign up if you want to. Don't feel pressured, but it's becoming quite clear that the power bills. This isn't like it isn't just an environmental strategy. It's actually, people are way past that. There's a cost strategy, a reduced cost. So people are a bit sick of the politics of energy, when really they're talking about individual people's financial position.
Could not agree more.
Yeah, and we had. I remember when I first started, they had this thing called Bill Buster. So Bill Buster was an evening where people would come from volunteer their time. They might have been energy consultants. They'd come out and you'd show them your power bill, and it'd be sort of horrific. It'd be like the numbers that look like a telephone number, the cost of your account, and then they started. And a lot of people, I think, in my generation, who own the property, but you're paying the bills. You think, oh well, that's what power costs you. Bloody hell.
So yeah, just
sort
kind
of tended to accept it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now these people are sort of giving you all sorts of strategies. So not only going into solar, but also looking at your house and your insulation and your lighting, anything you can do to even stop the need for the use of power, let alone reduce the cost. So solar energy is by far the most viable source of energy in this neck of the woods. It's not wind, it's not a windy place.
Right.
We got we have a lot of sun even in the winter. We have wet days, but they're usually wet days and it clears up. We don't have foggy days for months on end. So it works pretty well in the winter too.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is that this is an idea that I think even a lot of young people, young folk like my age, would struggle to get around. How have you found varying members in the community who are, who've got kids that are, my age, 20 something? How have they taken on this idea? Because I think hats off, by the way, that you're so behind this movement, because a lot of people in previous generations would just be like,
it's all too hard.
Yeah, or just and I think I have a huge amount of respect for that, because that isn't easy, just to change ideologies of like. I look at myself in my young life and think of how behind, if someone's trying to argue with me that fossil is the way forward, so I'm gonna have I'm gonna be like, no, because this is.
Yeah.
And so, how have you found in the community, for people's parents and grandparents, how have they taken on this idea?
Well, I think the way in which people think about it now, this is a generational issue or project. This isn't just about saving power bills, saving on power bills now. It's actually what's going to happen for our kids, your generation, or your grandchildren coming through. This is a long-term project. It's a major transition from one, like a country's going through a big mindset change in terms of how it's going to get its energy into the future. Not everyone believes that, and it's highly political, as I'm sure you see it every day. But more and more, the more people do it, the more it becomes a viable strategy. The more big corporations see it's in their interest to support it, because if they don't get on board, they'll be sorry, they'll miss the train, they'll miss the market. So there's a lot of commercial things too, but I think that relational thing and the supporting younger people, like one of the projects we're working on, which is, it's a bit fledgling, but it's one which I'm personally very proud of, and that is, we're sort of this idea of democratising renewable energy. So just because you don't own the house, you still, people might rent there, or it's social housing. May not be able to pay for the install of the equipment. And we're looking at ways in which we can actually work with government and philanthropy to ensure that this strategy doesn't imply that people who don't own the house, who don't have money, should get the thick end of the stick. They actually become somehow able to participate in it too. So we're still working on the models in which we could do that. In terms of who owns the asset, and if people move, what happens then, and all those sort of things. But that's one big.
For a small town of 1,200 people, is that right? Like it's a huge big picture, and I love the approach of it being both something that's environmentally the smartest way forward, but also financially, because we've all got those power bills to pay, and so I think that's like an incredibly well-rounded view on it. Yeah, it is. It's and I think we're starting to get, Yackandandah is actually, a lot of people watching this may not have ever heard of the town, and even to Google it, you need a large piece of paper to write it down. But it's a town that's becoming, it's a bit ahead of the curve in terms of some of the strategies that it's adopted. I'm not saying that to big note, but rather to say that there's some things that have happened here that the people's imagination has been stirred up. There's a sense of possibility, and why not? Why don't we keep going with this? And they're on a bit of a mission. The town has been recognised at a national level for its work, and big sustainability awards. There's a group called the Banksia Foundation, which is the longest running environmental awards in the world. It's been going for 30 years. So they have an annual event where we won an award for community resilience and environmental strategy. It's sort of it's quite a big thing if you're into it. I mean, some people thought, that's great, but it's symbolic. But it also it says something that the town is very proud of what it's achieved. Absolutely. And with you guys, with your goal, but you want by 2022, you want to be running on renewables. That's it. That's the goal. And Ziggy, it's an aspirational goal. It's not as if the world's going to end if we don't. But by having a serious number and a serious other number, a time frame, then gives you infrastructure. Everyone can see the light on the hill every time of the day. So if you pardon the pun, but it's there. That's the goal. So what are we doing to get to that? And how many percent are you as a town so far with renewable? How much percentage of the town? Well, the town. I was just talking to Matt
sort of executive officer before, and he said that the town is now up to about 50% solar household uptake, but that doesn't include public buildings, and I mentioned the Country Fire Authority, other community organisations, the community centre, the fuel station. They're generating. In fact, they're generating. This is another good story, but they're generating on their roof. The folk festival generates enough power each year, effectively on those 3 panels, to pay for the power they use during the festival weekend.
Amazing.
So it's not actual because they're plugging into wherever,
of course,
for the festival, but the amount of power generated is equal to what has been produced.
No, those are huge numbers in any level of community or any collective action. Those are huge percentages moving forward. Especially with a couple of years ahead of you guys, that is an incredibly fantastic start over the last 5 years. And why do you think, for people watching us before we go, this to me is a really example of there not needing to be change on a national level, but that it can be instigated via community. Why do you think it's important for things like this to be initiated via community and towns?
Well, I think there's people trust the people who are leading it. Like, there's a relational thing, as I said before. You know all the players. If a corporation comes to town, they want to start dealing with their community, they actually get to meet all the people who they need to meet in one place, possibly in one night, in the town, all the players. So there's an ease of engagement that a small country towns can provide, and also buy-in. I mean, one of the guys in our committee. There's a project I should tell you about very quickly. But bottom line is, this fellow who's in this project, he doesn't have power bills now. So he's very proud of that. Like, he comes to our meetings, and the only thing he wants to table is his printout from his household account, and how he's not paying anything for power. It's all sun. And obviously he's had to buy the equipment, but there's no bill. But basically, there's this project called mini grids, community mini grids. So in a way, AusNet have developed a way in which small communities can actually get involved quite quickly. So say you had 20 houses here, and a mini grid is a way of connecting up those 20 houses to use solar power. So each house, or most of them, would have solar panels and maybe a battery. The battery's another expensive item. So at any one point in time, house A might be generating more power than it's using. That person might have gone to work for the day. So rather than that going into the grid at hardly any value, it goes to house B. And the house B, the guy might be doing some welding, so he's going to need it at that point. So, and then it keeps going around the whole 20. So in effect, all the sunshine, all energy generated in that mini grid, it gets used within, in total, in terms of total demand at the time, before it goes out to somewhere else. So this is a way in which people can get involved directly. It's a group activity, so you're in it together, and people are collaborating for a good cause. So it taps that sense of people wanting to not just be an individual with your own power setup, but to be part of something that's at a community level, and having that, and Yak has been the demonstration project in a sense. I loosely call it the University of Yackandandah, because there is a big learning culture. We accept it. It's not all perfect. That we are learning as we go, and even the corporation would say that they need a community that's a cut a bit of slack, because they're developing systems that haven't been developed before too. So that's the Yak story. That's the Totally Renewable Yak story. That's
fantastic. And if people want to do, after watching the they want to do a bit of research online, if they want to learn about, perhaps there's someone who's in a community who wants to pull together another little town, far and wide of Australia, or maybe it's overseas. Where could they check out what you guys are doing and follow progress?
The best point is the website. We keep that pretty well up to date.
Totally
Renewable Yackandandah, and I should. Someone will spell it when it's written up. I hope, but Yackandandah. But it's a pretty simple model, really. But
we'll put a link in our bio,
and it will have all the links and information about the various projects that we've embarked on. And I haven't mentioned them all, but one that's really current, and it may be, I don't know, I can talk more about it, but there's an animal refuge, a wildlife refuge centre just out of Yak. It's out in the bush, and we've helped them get solar panels, but they need a battery. So we've currently, that's one of our identifiable current live projects for which we're chasing funding. So if along the way, if there's any, that's sort of something we do want to do, is promote that. It's sort of a double purpose thing, animal sanctuary as well as renewable energy. So.
Fantastic. Dennis, thank you very much for speaking out today. It's actually very, very inspiring.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Coming from a small town as well, coming from a small coastal town, and we actually have a very tight-knit community as well. And so when you talk about these sort of projects, it definitely brings to mind a lot of ways that through those relationships that you're discussing and speaking to, knowing the players and having the goodwill in each other, I just think that's a very, I certainly want to come check out Yackandandah. So.
Good.
Guys, check in for another episode when we find the time to upload it. But check out more at Totally Renewable Yackandandah.